The Honourable Member Chester Burrows.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and it's been a privilege to chair through the Justice and Electoral Committee the debate that has been circulating on alcohol over the last term. And it's interesting to note too that the previous government introduced the bill that the previous Speaker spoke on I think the 6th of August 2008, just a few days before the House rose, having spent most of that previous year in government debating such hugely important things as the Electoral Finance Act and the subsequent debates that went on through that, and the railroaded through select committee process that went through. Having been through these debates a couple of times in this term, firstly debating the bill promoted by the previous Speaker, which was given its first reading by the incoming National Government in March 2009, and then transacting this current bill, the Alcohol Reform Bill, which was brought by the Honourable Simon Power, and which came after getting the Law Commission to bring forward the report back in respect of their discussion paper, so that the bill could reflect as many of those recommendations as possible. Then I'm proud to have been in charge of steering through this piece of legislation through that Select Committee. And I want to thank the Select Committee members for the way in which they engaged in a bipartisan manner with the several thousand who engaged with the committee in bringing their submissions. The about 1,500 of those who gave their own written submissions, the several thousand more who sent in form submissions, and the over 90 hours of hearings that this committee went through. I want to, though, to thank those people who, previous to this select committee process, had their expertise, which they contributed, but through this process and through the public debate, and names like Gerard Vaughan and Doug Selman and Paul Quigley as individuals particularly who have gained some notoriety, and quite justifiably so, for the way that they have brought before the public of New Zealand the issues around the consumption of alcohol, and then those community groups like Glen Innes Alcohol Action Group and similar groups in Mangere, in Otara, in Christchurch and in other parts around the country, because this is a process that people have engaged with. And I reject very roundly the suggestion from the previous Speaker that the government and government members were only prepared to engage with the corporates, because that is total crap. In fact, these government members engage with those particular people and those alcohol action groups not only as members of the Select Committee but also as individual members of Parliament and as caucus committees, as did those from the other side of the House. So if they want to sit incredibly high or tall in a saddle on a high horse, they have got the wrong end of the stick. There are a number of themes that have come out of the public discussion on this debate, and they are that you cannot legislate for a culture. We do have a problem, a binge drinking culture in this country, and we need to deal with that problem, and we are not going to deal with it by way of legislation, but we can assist a change in behaviour through legislation, and I believe that is what we are achieving through this bill. Albeit we are not going to turn around 80 years of liberalisation from the times of prohibition in one bite. And I don't believe that any government would have done that of any hue. The other underlying or overriding theme that came through all this debate was that everybody's drinking is a problem except my own. And I don't mean mine personally, but I mean ours individually as we discuss it. Everybody believes that we've got a big problem with alcohol in this country, but refuses to look at their own manner in which they drink, or to tailor it according to the research and the study that we understand. The third point is this, that everybody in the sector points at somebody else for creating the problems around alcohol. If you want to talk to people who are running bars and people who are on licensed premises managers, they point to individual responsibility in the drinking that people do before they turn up at their bars, the level of alcohol that they've got on board before they start drinking, whether or not they can determine the level of intoxication of their own patrons, and they throw it back on them. If you want to talk to
Order.
Sorry, if people want to talk about supermarkets and they talk about the accessibility and availability of alcohol, the availability of cheap alcohol, as the previous speaker did, we can quite rightly make points that alcohol has never been as cheap as it is today. It's unrealistically cheap in respect of other commodities. It's unrealistically cheap in respect of the cost of production. And it's unfair not only to the producers, but it creates a huge social problem in supplying alcohol as cheaply as it does. It's interesting to note that as quick as the previous speaker was to seize all the benefits of legislation that she previously put up, her legislation never reduced minimum pricing. In fact, that has been something that came before the committee time and time again, and thankfully some of us didn't realise, some of us didn't need the Law Commissioner's report to tell us that there was an issue around minimum pricing and it needed to be addressed. And in this bill, it is being addressed, albeit what it is saying is there is a facility for regulation, but we are saying to the industry, the retail industry, you better supply us with the information that you have around the cost and the mechanisms for costing within supermarkets, or we will deal to you via regulation, via this legislation. I have already indicated, Mr Speaker, that this is a statement made to alcohol retailers. The point is too that a number of the crucial issues and critical issues around drinking have been addressed through this legislation, albeit it hasn't gone as far as the number of people would have liked. And I was at a public meeting in Manurewa just last week and spoke to a group of people there, and those who were attending the meeting were very disappointed that they haven't achieved their end goal. And when I said to them, you need to be aware of how you have changed the debate, and you need to be conscious of the fact that you have made significant changes and turned the debate around from one of liberalisation to one of constraint, and reminded the groups that they needed to take some heart from that. They responded in two different ways, and they were the way that you would expect, or one would expect, activists to respond. Half of them said, well, you know, we've got so far to go and we're looking forward without looking behind to see how far that they had come. And the other half of the group was so grateful for the fact that the Parliament had taken cognizance of what they were saying, and gratitude for the fact that all their hard work had achieved a number of things. I've got to say that it was very good to have the input of Sir Geoffrey Palmer and the Law Commission report in respect of this. In fact, I think he believed at one stage that he was so popular he could come and do a Don Brash on the Labour Party and seek to roll his good friend Phil Goff for the leadership. However, I understand he's taken retirement or realignment in respect of that. I get in the finger to wind up, and I understand it. I guess that's just the one finger, and it won't appear on the front page of the New Zealand Herald. We have addressed community ownership of these problems by allowing communities to be able to dictate as to how alcohol is going to be sold and supplied within their areas, and it's been a long time coming. We've differentiated between supermarkets and dairies to make sure that alcohol can't be sold within dairies, because when it was extended to supermarkets back in the day, that was where Parliament intended that it would go. We have addressed age in respect of, and there has been a constraint, a restriction, a lifting of age as to when the purchase age of alcohol to take away, and that is a good thing. Parental supply is something where through this bill we have put the responsibility of supply of alcohol to minors back onto parents, albeit there isn't a legislated drinking age. And when we investigated as a committee as to where that drinking age would be, there was no consensus, and I've covered, for instance, the restrictions on price. I just want to finish by making one point, and that is to go back to what I said about the sector. Every part of the industry, of the alcohol industry, points to another as being responsible for the evils of alcohol. Every problem with youth drinking starts from an adult wanting to push the envelope and push the boundary and what is acceptable out there. in the new product design and how alcohol is sold and the mixes of energy drinks and alcohol is just one indication. It is over to us as legislators in this Parliament, and it is over to those people involved in the industry to take the lead and take the responsibility, albeit this is about individual responsibility. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.